It never starts with silence. It starts with noise you're not part of. The email wasn't addressed to me. It was forwarded by accident, or perhaps on purpose. It's hard to tell with family. No subject line, just a string of attachments and a single sentence from Haley. Dad said you're too busy anyway. Don't make it weird. I opened the first photo. There they were on the deck at Lake Tahoe, drinks in hand, coordinated smiles, the lake behind them shimmering like something out of a commercial. Haley was in the center, leaning into Monica like they belonged to the same story. Monica wore a blue dress I hadn't seen before, and on her wrist was something else I had seen once, a sapphire bracelet that had belonged to my mother. I didn't scroll through the rest of the photos immediately. I stared at that one until the screen dimmed and faded. No one had told me there was a reunion. There was a group chat once. I had muted it months ago when the noise turned into static, when messages about just family things stopped feeling like they included me. I didn't leave the chat. I didn't speak up. I just faded with the rest of the unread notifications. I tapped into the chat history. The last message I'd sent was a photo of the puppy I was fostering at the time. His name's Toby. He bit through my charger this morning. No one had replied. That was 3 months ago. Monica had posted the itinerary a week before the reunion. Lake House weekend. Same rooms as last time. Bring sunscreen and stories. Same rooms as last time. Mine had a broken lamp and a mattress that sagged in the middle. Haley's had lake view windows and a full-length mirror. I looked at the attendees list in one of the screenshots. It was typed, color-coded. Frank and Monica, master suite. Haley, upstairs guest room. Tyler, bunk room. Ethan, den. Guests, cabin. No. Claire. Not even as a typo. I checked my calendar anyway. I had no plans that weekend. No deadline. No emergency. They just didn't ask. I closed the email and leaned back in my chair. My hand went to the edge of the desk, where a small chip in the wood caught my thumb. A tiny cut formed, but I didn't move. The pain was minor, just sharp enough to notice I was still present in my own body. There was a time when my mother would tape her grocery lists to the fridge and add my name for fun, Claire's crackers, Claire's tea. She said it made shopping more personal. That was the year Dad forgot my birthday and gave me a gas card 2 weeks later. You drive so much for work. It's practical, he'd said. I didn't argue. I never argued. I made things easier. When Mom died, Monica started handling the family updates. The emails shifted from lowercase warmth to punctuation-perfect logistics. Haley mirrored her phrasing like inheritance passed through tone. Claire's got a demanding schedule. Claire's always chasing numbers. Claire likes being alone. The thing about being quiet is that people assume you're okay with being left out. After the funeral, Monica offered to sort through Mom's jewelry. Some of it is outdated. I'll keep what's meaningful. I'd said nothing then, just like I said nothing now, looking at the bracelet on her wrist in the photo, my mother's bracelet. Oval sapphire silver band, tiny clasp only Mom could ever open without help. Monica had once told me over dinner when everyone else was out back playing lawn games, "You're the kind of person who disappears easily." No offense. It's just your energy. I had smiled. Quiet people smile a lot. After the photo, I checked the weather in Tahoe. Sunny, 74 degrees. Then I checked my bank account, though I wasn't sure why. Balance normal. Activity calm. No emergency, no crisis, just the kind of ordinary stillness that leaves room for reflection. I didn't call Haley. I didn't call Dad. I didn't text Monica to ask about the bracelet. I opened my drawer instead. The one with old receipts, expired tea bags, and a single envelope with my name in Mom's handwriting. I didn't open that, either. It had no address, just Claire in cursive, and one small heart beside it. I kept it unopened because I was afraid it might say something final, and even more afraid it might not say anything at all. There was a message in the family group the next day. "We missed you, Claire. Hope all is well." From Monica. Not from Dad, not from Haley. I stared at it for 10 minutes and didn't reply. 2 days later, Haley sent another. It was actually really peaceful this time. No drama. Dad even made pancakes. No photo attached, but I could picture it. Him in the kitchen with that apron Mom gave him one Christmas, the one with chili peppers on it. He used to complain it was too loud. Monica must have thrown it out. I looked out my apartment window. The building across the alley had a new plant on its windowsill. A spider plant, maybe. It was thriving. Probably watered regularly. When I finally put my phone down, the sapphire bracelet still shimmered behind my eyelids. I didn't have proof it was hers, but I didn't need proof. I remembered how it used to twist on Mom's wrist when she handed me hot tea. She always held the cup by the rim, never the handle. Let them do what they want, she once told me, folding laundry with practiced precision. You'll survive them longer if you say less. At the time, I thought she meant keep the peace. Now, I wonder if she meant keep your distance. No one shouted at me. No one cut me off. They just moved on and forgot to turn around. I used to believe distance was something I chose. Now, I'm not so sure. There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful, just practiced. I used to think small gestures would count for something. Folding the towels a certain way, refilling the salt shaker without being asked, leaving the light on in the hallway so no one would stub their toe. Tiny, invisible efforts. I thought they added up. When Haley and Tyler came to visit in college, I gave them my room without anyone asking. The guest room had no heat that winter, and the upstairs window didn't close all the way. I moved my clothes to a storage bin and slept on the couch with a blanket that smelled like mothballs and old cinnamon. No one said thank you. Haley had left her coffee cup on the nightstand, and it left a ring on the old wood that never quite came out. Don't make things complicated, Mom once told me, brushing crumbs off a faded apron. Let people be comfortable, even if it costs you a little. She had a way of making self-erasure sound generous. The Christmas I turned 23, I spent 3 weekends searching for an old-style bomber jacket my dad used to talk about. He'd mentioned it once when we passed a vintage shop on the way to the grocery store. Had one just like that when I was 20. Felt like a damn movie star. I found it in a resale shop in Evanston, wore gloves to clean the leather, wrapped it in brown paper with string instead of tape because I thought it looked more thoughtful that way. He didn't open it. Just said, "You always go overboard. I told you not to spend on me." The box stayed under the tree until New Year's. Monica put it in the hall closet with a nod that felt like a warning. I still called him every Thursday for months after Mom died. The first few weeks he picked up immediately. By the 3rd month he started forwarding the call. When he did answer, he talked about Monica's new real estate license, her garden boxes, her son Ethan's computer setup. "She brings light to the house again," he said once over the clink of a spoon against ceramic. It was getting pretty dark around here before. There was a pause in that call where I thought he might ask how I was doing. He didn't. When he mentioned Monica's business struggles, I offered to draft a basic financial plan, something simple, cost projections, quarterly goals, tax buffer. He passed the message along. The reply came through Haley, who had just started community college. "Monica says Frank doesn't like being managed." That was The first time I noticed they didn't call him Dad when they were with her. Just Frank. Like, that made it easier to separate versions of him. At family gatherings, I always found myself near the sink. I washed dishes while others took selfies by the fire pit. I dried them as they shared old stories that I never seemed to be part of. Once at Haley's graduation, Monica gave a toast. "We're proud of this family. Everyone here has carried a little piece of the load." I had flown in that morning, taken a day off work, brought the sheet cake, and set up all the chairs. She didn't look in my direction. There was a ceramic bowl at that party, cracked along one edge. It used to be Mom's, though someone had painted over the chip with glossy enamel. I could still see the fault line. At the end of that night, I picked up the discarded napkins and rearranged the chairs back into rows. Monica passed by with a tray of untouched desserts. "Don't worry about all this. We've got people for cleanup." I didn't ask who he was. I had never been loud. I didn't argue at the table. I didn't send long emails. I said fine when things weren't. I replied no worries when there were. I RSVP'd on time, brought gifts with receipts folded discreetly into the wrapping, and kept my shoes by the door. At the lake house reunion 2 years ago, I offered to sleep on the fold-out couch so Monica's mother could take the bedroom. No one objected. I left early that Sunday. No one noticed. I had given up trying to be seen. I started focusing on being useful. Once, when the car battery died in the middle of December, I stayed on hold with the tow company for 47 minutes so Dad could stay inside. When the mechanic asked whose name was on the account, he pointed to Monica. She handles all that now. He didn't mean to erase me, but indifference does the same work as cruelty, just slower. The fridge in my apartment hums in a rhythm I've memorized. 3 low notes, then a soft click. It fills the quiet now, the kind that used to scare me. There's a shirt I keep in the bottom drawer. Faded cotton stitched at the collar. I used to wear it to mow the lawn when I lived at home. It still smells faintly of grass and heat. And the summer I got my first paycheck. Sometimes I fold it again, even though no one sees. Haley once told someone at a wedding in front of me, "Claire's kind of like white noise. You don't notice it, but it helps things stay calm." I laughed then. I always laugh when I don't know where to put the sting. It took me years to learn that calm doesn't mean safe, and silence doesn't mean peace. I thought I was choosing restraint. I thought patience would earn permanence, that if I worked quietly loved without fanfare, offered space, they would understand it as loyalty. But I was mistaken. Not about what I gave, but about who was keeping track. They weren't counting. And I had made myself so easy to ignore, they didn't need to try. I used to believe quiet was humility. Now I see it's also how people disappear. Some names aren't forgotten. They're just never spoken in the first place. The day I graduated, I wore shoes that didn't fit and a smile that did. I had spent the night before ironing my gown on a towel over the kitchen counter. The university had asked if I wanted to reserve seats for family. I wrote 2 names on the form out of habit, not expectation. No one came. I took the photo because everyone else did. It looked like a celebration. Summa, cum laude in gold across my sash hair, curled, the sun making everything seem warmer than it was. When I sent it to the group chat, it took 2 days for anyone to respond. Monica's reply. "It's just a paper, Claire. Don't let it get to your head." I didn't answer. I never did when the words landed like frost. Haley posted a link that same week. An op-ed from someone in her sorority about women and wealth. She captioned it, "This is what real impact looks like." I had published my first column in a financial journal the day before. I had emailed it to Dad with a note. "Thought you might want to see what I've been working on." The read receipt came through. No reply. Later at dinner, Monica mentioned it to him like it was trivia. Claire's been writing about money again, still worried no one's saving enough. Frank chuckled, poured more wine, and nodded without looking up. There's a drawer in my apartment that sticks slightly when it opens. Inside, there's a stack of cards, birthday, graduation, holidays. Most unsigned or signed with just one name. Frank writes in block letters even on greeting cards. Keep saving. Don't forget family. One card had a stain in the corner. Coffee, maybe. Or something darker. I kept them anyway. My mother used to tell me that being seen was different from being noticed. You don't have to shine, she said once, pressing a cool cloth to my forehead during a childhood fever. You just have to be real enough to leave a shape in the room. She left shapes everywhere. The nurse's watch she wore never kept perfect time, but she said the ticking reminded her she still had choices. I found it in a box 6 months after she died. The band had cracked. The glass was dull. The hands still moved. I didn't wear it. I just kept it on the bookshelf beside the dictionary she always used for crossword clues. The first winter after the funeral, Monica reorganized the attic. Decluttering brings emotional clarity, she told Haley while sorting boxes into piles. My name was on 3 of them. One had a sweater Mom knitted in high school. Monica called it excess yarn sentimentality. It went into the donation bin. I took it back when no one was looking. There's a photo album on the top shelf at their house. Monica made it for Father's Day. The cover reads, Our Family Story. I'm in the first 5 pages smaller, softer, holding a balloon and looking slightly off camera. After that, I fade. In one of the later photos, Haley stands between Monica and Frank, each holding a side of her college acceptance letter. The caption reads, She made us proud. There's no photo of my acceptance. No caption, no space. When I got promoted at the firm, I emailed a photo of the new office to the family thread. Haley replied 3 days later. So, do you have like an assistant now? I do. Her name is Meg. She waters the plants when I'm out. There's a moment every evening just after sunset when my apartment hums differently. Like the space exhales. The light turns amber against the kitchen tile, and I can hear the neighbor's dog shifting in his crate. That's usually when I reheat leftovers and stare at the bookshelf where the nurse's watch rests ticking faintly beneath the dust. I remember sitting on the porch as a teenager watching my parents argue through the kitchen window. Their movements were tight and practiced like dancers in a routine they'd rehearsed too many times. I couldn't hear them, but I knew the rhythm. Monica hadn't arrived yet. The house was still half full of Mom's voice and chipped dishes. That night, after they stopped speaking, Mom sat next to me and handed me a folded napkin with a single sentence on it. You don't need to be the best. You just need to remember you exist. I've carried that napkin through 4 apartments. The ink has faded. The fold lines have frayed. But I know where it is. I keep it under the tray that holds my keys. At last year's Christmas dinner, someone brought up Monica's renovation plans. The kitchen, the floors, maybe the guest room. I offered to help with the finances again. The room went quiet before Monica smiled. Claire likes numbers. Let her have her spreadsheets. Frank laughed into his drink. Haley didn't look up from her phone. The next day I drove home and opened my mailbox to find a holiday card. Inside, hope you're making time for joy. Frank and Monica. No signature, no photo, just space. I used to think, sometimes I touch the glass of Mom's watch without lifting it. The ticking is faint, steady. It doesn't demand anything. It just reminds me, I'm here. I used to believe I was overlooked. Now I understand I was never denied. Just quietly, methodically erased. I never thought betrayal would come with such polite formatting. 5 transfers, each one spaced carefully like someone had studied how close you can get to a line without crossing it. Just under 10,000. Just under suspicion. The bank confirmed it had come from my device. My login. My fingerprint. The voice on the other end used words like authenticated, verified, non-contested history. I kept nodding even though no one could see me. I remembered Ethan holding my phone. Just for a moment. He wanted to scroll through pictures of the lake. He tapped with the ease of someone who had done it before. I hadn't thought to look over his shoulder. The drive to my father's house was quiet. I held the steering wheel like it might slip through my hands. The heat inside the car made the plastic of the dashboard smell faintly sweet, like something artificial left too long in the sun. I didn't knock hard. Monica opened the door with the same smile she used when asking waiters to replace her salad. Claire. Unexpected. I stepped inside. Frank didn't look up from the television. Ethan was on the floor, headphones half on screen, flickering in front of him. I didn't raise my voice. Who emptied my account? Monica's nails tapped her wrist. A watch I didn't recognize. Silver. Minimalist. You're always checking numbers. I'm surprised you didn't notice sooner. Frank muted the television. The silence was louder than anything I could have said. It was sitting there, he said. We needed it. I kept my eyes on a mug beside him. Navy blue chipped at the handle. One, Dad. That wasn't yours to take. You've got more than you'll ever use. That doesn't make it yours. Monica adjusted a framed photo on the shelf beside her. Haley in a white dress, Frank holding her diploma. This is what families do, she said. Redistribution. You've always lived like you're separate from the rest of us. I worked for that. Frank leaned back slowly like this was a conversation about preferences, not theft. We gave you everything. We didn't think you'd mind helping just this once. You didn't ask. You would have said no. That was still my right. Ethan stood up and left the room without a word. The door to the hallway clicked shut like punctuation. You're overreacting. Monica's voice didn't change. You don't even have a mortgage. What were you saving it for? Just numbers on a screen. Frank rubbed his eyes. You always were the rigid one. Just like her. The bracelet on Monica's wrist caught the light again. Pale stones, small but carefully arranged. Mom taught me to be prepared, I said. She also told me not to let you drain me financially or otherwise. He flinched. Only slightly, the kind of movement that barely registered unless you were looking for it. The hallway creaked. Tyler and Haley stepped into view. Neither of them said anything. Haley crossed her arms. We didn't think you'd come back here. Tyler's eyes didn't meet mine. His hands were in his pockets the same way he stood at funerals. Still. Waiting. Did you know? No answer. That money was for my future, Frank stood. Your future. What about ours? You think you're better because you live in a condo and eat alone? No, I said. But I don't steal. Monica picked up the remote and held it like a weapon that required no force. If this is who you are now, maybe it's better we stop pretending. I looked at the rug beneath my feet. Beige, perfectly clean, no indentation from footsteps, no history. I'm giving you 24 hours. Frank's mouth curved, but it wasn't a smile. Or what? You'll embarrass your family over a few digits. This isn't embarrassment. It's clarity. Ungrateful doesn't even begin to cover it. Mom would have called it survival. He turned away then, toward the television, towards something he could control. I walked past the entryway table. A small ceramic tray sat beside the keys. Inside it, a single cufflink, gold-toned, engraved with initials that weren't his. Don't forget Monica's voice, low and even. We were here for you when no one else was. That was the moment I realized she believed it. That kindness could be rewritten. That silence could be recast as loyalty. I didn't forget, I said. That's the problem. No one followed me to the door. No one called after me. On the way out, I noticed the light bulb in the porch fixture had burned out. It had been that way last summer too. I remembered my mother's voice just once behind me in the kitchen, her hands still wet from rinsing plates. Don't let them strip you bare, Claire. Not your money, not your name, not your edges. In that room surrounded by familiar furniture and unfamiliar people, I didn't feel pain. I felt precision. And for the first time, I saw them clearly. I didn't go back. I didn't call. I didn't answer the messages that arrived first, hesitant, then defensive, then silent again. One from Haley read, "You've made your point. Don't turn this into drama." I read it twice, then held my thumb over the screen until the entire thread disappeared. I blocked her number. Tyler's too. Monica's. My father's. I didn't delete them. I just made them quiet. The letter I wrote was short. No apology, no emotion, no signature. You have 24 hours to return the funds. After that, I'll involve legal counsel. I printed it on plain white paper, folded it into thirds, and slid it into their mailbox myself. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't look at the windows. I didn't breathe until I was back in my car. The apartment felt colder than usual when I got home. I opened the drawer beneath the sink, the one with the spare battery's expired coupons, and the pen that only writes in blue half the time. Behind a box of plastic utensils was the envelope I hadn't touched since the week after the funeral. My mother's handwriting was still steady, slanted small. She had labelled it simply Claire. No date, no address. Just my name written like she was reminding me I had one. Inside the paper was lined and folded twice. One sentence. If you ever need to walk away, do it quietly. Let dignity speak for you. I didn't cry. I placed the letter back where it was and closed the drawer without adjusting anything else. The next morning, I searched for lawyers who specialized in financial disputes. The first one that appeared was a woman named Diana Foster. Her website had no testimonials, just a tagline, clarity, without noise. I booked the earliest consultation available. I didn't tell anyone. Not Rachel, not my supervisor, not the building manager who always waved when I came home late. I didn't want advice. I wanted clean steps. At work, I took down the framed photo that had sat on my desk for 4 years. The one from Thanksgiving, the last one before Mom passed. Everyone was smiling, except me. Even then, I had known something was off, but I hadn't named it. The frame went into my bag. The photo I left in the break room bin. I printed out a new one. Mom standing outside the clinic in her scrubs, holding a paper cup of coffee. Her hair tied back, her face unreadable, but awake. I pinned that to the corkboard beside my calendar. I didn't explain the switch to anyone. That night, I opened the kitchen drawer with the knives. At the back was one with a faded wooden handle, short blade slightly curved. My father had given it to me when I moved into this apartment. Small but sharp, like you. It had dulled over time. The tip was nicked. I wrapped it in brown paper, secured it with tape, and dropped it into the garbage chute. I didn't watch it fall. I checked my bank account again. The numbers remained the same. The theft neatly divided. 5 exact wounds. One of my co-workers handed me an envelope during lunch, a birthday card, my name in cursive, inside a note from HR and a $10 coffee gift card. I stared at it longer than I should have. The handwriting looked like Monica's. I slid it into my purse and said thank you, without knowing to whom. My phone vibrated that evening. A new number. The preview read, "If you do this, you'll break him." I turned the screen off. I didn't block it. I didn't reply. I slid the phone face down on the counter and stared at the line of sugar grains someone had spilled earlier. I hadn't swept them up. I watched them reflect the light, barely visible, unless you looked close. The first time I had money of my own, I kept it in an envelope inside a dictionary. I was 12. Babysitting money. $8 and a Canadian coin. My mother found it and added $5 more to the stack. "You don't need to count it every day," she told me, folding the envelope tighter. "But it's okay if you do." She never touched it without asking. When Diana called to confirm the appointment, I told her yes, and gave her every detail in a monotone voice. She didn't interrupt. At the end of the call, she only said, "We move forward when you're ready." But not before. That evening, I wrote one sentence in my journal and then closed it. Strength doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it sits still, holding its breath. I didn't scream. I didn't explain. I didn't try to change their minds. I stopped waiting for them to recognize mine. And I walked away. Not because I was weak, but because I no longer needed to beg for decency from people who once shared my blood. I used to think silence was something you escaped from. Now, I treat it like a roommate. The key to the new apartment stuck in the lock the first time. The building manager said it always does that. "Just jiggle it a little, it'll learn you." It didn't. I never unpacked all the boxes. Some sat stacked in the corner of the living room like permanent guests. I knew what was in them: old textbooks, kitchen gadgets I wouldn't use here, picture frames I didn't need. There was no dishwasher, no laundry in unit. The fridge hummed a little louder than it should, but it worked. The window looked out over the back of a grocery store loading dock. Sometimes I'd hear crates being wheeled in at dawn. I never closed the blinds. Most evenings I sat on the floor with my knees pulled up a blanket around my shoulders, and a cup of instant noodles balanced on a cracked plate. The radiator clicked when it wanted attention, but never gave heat when I needed it. No one called. No one texted. That silence didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt earned. I created a new email. New passwords. I even changed the answers to my security questions. Mother's maiden name I typed irrelevant. First, pet's name doesn't matter. I opened a new checking account under a different bank, the kind without branches, just a clean app interface and no voices on hold. The first purchase was a cactus. Small, stubborn, probably overpriced. I carried it home in a brown paper bag, and it tilted sideways with each step, like it hadn't decided whether to live or die. I named it Monday and set it on the window ledge, and every morning I checked to see if it's still standing. So far it is. There's a bench in the park 3 blocks away, the one near the dry fountain that doesn't work anymore. I go there when the weather doesn't argue. No headphones, no phone, just people passing by, dogs pulling leashes, kids trying to skip rocks across the dirt. No one looks at me twice. That's the part I've learned to appreciate. I drink my coffee differently now. Not the automatic machine with the timer, not the pod system that hums like a hotel room, just a glass pour-over and a kettle. 3 scoops. Slow circles. I watch the steam rise and disappear. The mug I use has no writing on it. Once, while cleaning the kitchen drawer, I found the spare apartment key taped to the bottom of a matchbox. I paused with it in my hand longer than I should have, not because I feared someone would take it, but because for the first time I didn't think I needed anyone to have it. There are noises at night pipes, knocking a neighbour pacing above the occasional siren, but none of them call my name. The doormat says welcome, but only out of habit. One day, while wiping down the counters, I noticed the outline of a stain shaped like a small hand. Maybe from the last tenant. Maybe older. I didn't scrub it. I just placed a bowl over it. My spending log is a spiral notebook. I don't trust apps anymore. Each purchase gets written down in block letters. Rent, rice, coffee, soap, cactus soil. Once a week I treat myself to a pastry from the corner bakery. The cashier never remembers me, even though I always choose the same thing. When I bite into it, I always think I bought this with my own name. There's a coat hanging behind the door. It's not the old one. This one is second-hand navy, slightly too big. I stitched the inner lining myself. The thread is uneven, but it holds. No one's ever told me it looks nice. I used to save voicemails. I don't anymore. I tried turning on the TV once just to fill the room. It felt like someone talking over me, so I turned it back off. The quiet has more to say. There's a drawer in the bathroom with nothing in it but a folded towel and an unopened bar of soap. I keep meaning to use it, but something about its neatness feels protective. Like if I disturb it, I'll owe someone an explanation. But there's no one to owe anymore. Not in this apartment. Not in apartment 3C. I haven't told anyone the address. Not the bank. Not the post office. Not even the lawyer. And yet, somehow, I feel more found than I ever did in the house with the swing set and the name etched on the mailbox. There's no light fixture in the hallway, just a bulb dangling from the ceiling by a wire. I leave it off most nights. I know where everything is by feel. And, for once, I don't need permission to exist here. I haven't felt relief. Not yet. But, for the first time in years, I don't feel owned. I stopped checking the family group thread a long time ago, but that morning, the email still made it past the filter. Subject line. Just checking in. No punctuation, no greeting, no sign-off. Just, Dad's been struggling. Maybe you could visit sometime. I read it once then again. Nothing changed the second time. I clicked away without replying. The coffee that day tasted like over-steeped waiting. A week later, a text came from Tyler. I hadn't blocked him, though I wasn't sure why. The family is hurting. You know where home is? Home. A word they use like a leash. I didn't respond. I added his number to the archive list. Later that afternoon, one of my co-workers passed me an envelope. No sender name. Handwritten. Inside was a letter in my father's script. Slanted, rigid, each word a brick laid for defense, not warmth. You've made your point. Enough damage. Let's keep this private. The ink smudged slightly at the bottom, like he'd paused not from emotion, but from weight. I left it on my desk until closing time, then slid it into the recycling bin without folding. That same evening, I heard through a colleague that Monica had shown up at the front desk, asking to speak with Claire Whitmore family. The receptionist told her politely that we didn't take walk-ins. Apparently Monica didn't like that. She left behind a business card with "Let's be civil" written on the back. Civil. As if civility was owed to the ones who broke in quietly. A few days later, one of my old college friends forwarded a screenshot from a cousin's Facebook post. "Claire's dragging this too far. Families fight. You don't destroy your own." No one tagged me. They just discussed me like weather. I clicked through the comments until I reached one from someone I hadn't spoken to since high school. If she cared about family, she'd have handled it privately. Not everything's about money. I closed the app. There was a letter on my kitchen counter I hadn't opened yet. White envelope, typed address, return label from the district attorney's office. I didn't need to read it to know what it was. Monica's assets were under investigation. The house by the lake, the boat, even the investment accounts she used to brag about at family dinners, pretending it was all smart planning. I hadn't reported anything, but the paper trail doesn't lie, especially when it's lined with someone else's fingerprints. Still, no one asked if I was okay. No one wondered how I'd paid rent the month after the money vanished. No one questioned whether I had groceries, insurance, or sleep. They just circled back once their own losses began to burn. That night, I stood at the sink drying a chipped plate with a towel I'd stitched myself. One of the seams had come loose. I kept folding around it anyway. The radio played faintly in the background. Jazz, I think, but I wasn't listening. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Haley. "We should talk. This is still fixable." I put the phone face down on the counter and poured myself a glass of water. I didn't drink it right away. The cactus on the windowsill had bloomed unexpectedly. One small flower, pale yellow, curling at the edges. I hadn't watered it in a while. It had grown without asking. At work, I received a certified letter Monica requesting mediation. No apology. Just logistics, terms, conditions, a tone that assumed access. One line stood out. "I'm sure we can come to an understanding that doesn't involve further embarrassment." Further. As if their shame mattered more than my silence. My lawyer asked if I wanted to respond. I told her I'd think about it. Then I turned off notifications for every app except email. The picture frame with my mother's photo remained the only one on my desk. I cleaned the glass with the edge of my sleeve, careful not to leave prints. At the grocery store, I bumped into a distant aunt I barely recognized. Her voice dropped low as she leaned closer. "You know, your father's not getting any younger." I looked at the basket in her hands. Champagne. Strawberries. Frozen shrimp. I walked past her without slowing. That evening I microwaved a bowl of lentils and sat by the window. The city kept moving. People kept going places. Nobody stopped at my door. They didn't return for me. They returned because the ground had shifted under them. And I was the only stable piece left in the wreckage. I used to think that love looked like return. That one day they would come back and see me, not just what I provided, but they didn't ask how I'd held up. They didn't ask what it cost me to stand still while they pulled the floor out from under me. They wanted access, not amends. They wanted resolution without remorse. The kind of family that thinks healing is silence, that says, "You made your choice. Now live with it." I did. And I am. I'm not hurt anymore. I'm just sorry I ever mistook proximity for belonging. I used to fill silence with noise, background, TV, scrolling, even humming. Anything to avoid hearing my own stillness. Now I keep a folded table near the window, one I assembled myself. The wood isn't new, the legs creak, but it holds. I bought it from a man who didn't ask for more than the price marked in faded pen. There was Something steady in the exchange, simple even. No pretending, no guilt sewn into a thank you. On Saturdays I walk to the corner flower stand. I don't pick the brightest bouquet or the perfect bloom. I choose what feels earned, a stem that leans a little petals that open unevenly. They sit in a chipped ceramic vase on the table, one I found in a thrift shop labelled 50 pounds. Cracked. I liked that it wasn't trying to hide its damage. I teach now, a small class, just a room tucked behind the outreach centre. Financial skills for independent living. They come in with questions about credit scores and leave thinking about boundaries. We talk about money, but really we talk about control. Power, the kind people take when they say they love you. One of the handouts I give starts with, "Your account is your own." I underline it. Twice. Last week I made tomato soup, not from a can. I bought the tomatoes, boiled them down, stained a towel red in the process. It wasn't the soup I remembered from childhood, but the kitchen smelled right. I set one bowl on the table beside the flowers. I didn't scroll. I didn't text anyone to say, "Look what I made." I just sat and ate it slowly with the window open. After class today, I was wiping the board when I noticed someone in the back row who hadn't been there earlier. Haley. She didn't sign in, didn't speak during the session, just listened, notebook closed. When everyone left, she didn't move. I didn't either. Eventually, she walked over. Her eyes didn't meet mine. "I wish I had your strength." Then she left. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask how I'd been, and I didn't offer anything in return. I don't need her remorse. Not anymore. There's a photograph I don't keep out anymore. The family, one holiday, lights in the background, everyone mid-laughter me holding a pie I baked. That pie didn't get touched. Someone had brought store-bought, and no one wanted 2 desserts. I'd told myself it didn't matter. Now I let the photo rest at the bottom of a drawer I don't open often. The picture that stays on my table now is just of Mom, taken before everything cracked. She's holding a mug in both hands, slightly blurry, but the look on her face is calm, whole. I imagine she's saying something small like, "Try again, but don't rush." I can't hear her voice, but I know the weight of those words. Frank sent a letter last week. Plain envelope, no return address, but his handwriting gives him away. I didn't open it. I placed it on top of my fridge. Not out of fear, just a choice, the kind I didn't use to think I had. I keep receipts now, for everything. Not because I plan to prove anything, but because I like having a record. A trail, even if it's just for myself. Someone at the workshop asked me what's the first thing to do after being financially betrayed. I said, change the locks. All of them, not just the physical ones. Sometimes I still hear Tyler's voice in my head. You know where home is, but I don't flinch anymore. Home isn't where people remember your birthday. It's where you don't have to shrink yourself to be let in. The cactus on my windowsill is starting to bloom. Just one small bud at the edge, I don't water it too much. It's not fragile. It just needs space. Like me. I don't return Monica's emails. She signs them. Love always now. As if always meant something clean. I didn't choose what they did to me, but I choose every detail of my life now. The mug I use, the apps I delete, the exact softness of the towel I wrap around my hair after a long shower. They haven't changed, but I have. I no longer need them to know that. Some decisions arrive not with thunder, but with stillness. The name change form was simpler than I expected. 2 pages, 3 signatures, 1 copy of my birth certificate. The receptionist at the county clerk's office wore earrings shaped like tiny owls. I remember that more than her voice. Claire Bennett. I wrote it slowly, not because I hesitated, because I wanted to feel the shape of it again. My mother's name. The one they let disappear from holiday cards and mantel photos after the funeral. I took it back without asking. No one would miss Claire Whitmore. She had served her role agreeable, available, quietly convenient. At home, I gathered the remains. The sapphire bracelet sat in a velvet box still wrapped from the last time I moved. Frank had given it to me after college. To mark your place in the family, he'd said, but I think it was more about appearances, what daughters should wear at banquets and brunches. I never wore it again after the night he shrugged at the missing money. We needed it. That had been his answer. Not sorry, not surprised, just done. I taped the envelope with deliberate care, wrote the return address with a fine tip pen, not shaking. Claire Bennett, apartment 3C. No note inside. The bracelet could speak for itself. I dropped it off at the post office without emotion. The man behind the glass asked insurance. I replied, no. It's already gone. That evening I opened the drawer with the old records. Birth certificate, social security card, voter registration under my former name. I tore the first along its seam, then the second. The third I folded and placed in the shredder. I didn't do it angrily. I did it like someone dusting off a shelf that would no longer be used. In my email inbox, I found the legal draft Diana had sent weeks earlier. I hadn't signed it yet. Renouncing my rights to Frank's estate, legally detaching myself as his heir. I opened the PDF, scrolled to the end, typed my name. Claire Bennett. No hesitation. Just a thin line of silence in my chest. I printed it, placed it in a clean envelope, and walked to the mailbox at the corner near the bodega with the wilted roses. A pigeon watched me from the street lamp, the kind of detail that stays for no real reason. At my desk, I deleted the last of them from my contacts. Tyler, Monica, Haley, Frank. I didn't block them. That would suggest anticipation. I simply erased the expectation. The inheritance wasn't what I let go of. It was the mythology that I still owed them anything. That I had to remain tethered by blood that never acted like kin. I burned a few things, not in ceremony just because it was cold outside. The household registry from years ago. A holiday photo with names scribbled on the back. A birthday card with Love Dad in flat handwriting. I watched the edges curl then fall. I kept one item, my mother's ladle, wooden handle still stained. It didn't match my kitchen. That's why it stayed. A letter arrived the next morning. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. You've made your point. Enough damage. Let's keep this private. I read it twice, folded it along the creases, slipped it into the same box where I kept tax returns and vaccination cards. Not out of sentiment. Out of completeness. I didn't respond. I don't think I even blinked. I had done nothing loud. No calls, no announcements. But the silence had become its own declaration. A line drawn without ink. I remembered something my mother once told me the last time we spoke at length, before her health declined. If you ever leave, don't slam the door. Close it gently. Let them hear the quiet. I didn't slam it. I changed my name. I signed away the legacy. I returned the last gift. I didn't explain why. They wouldn't have listened anyway. The last thing I did was write a short note. Printed, folded, mailed. I am no longer your daughter. Please don't contact me again. Keep whatever's left. I don't need it. I didn't cry. I didn't even exhale loudly. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one I assembled by hand weeks before, a chipped mug of tea next to a stack of legal folders. The sunlight touched the surface of the wood without urgency. I thought it would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like turning off a faucet that had been leaking for years, and finally hearing the absence of the drip. No more explanations. No more trying. I didn't walk away from them. I just stopped pretending I could fix what they never wanted to keep. And that, finally, was enough. I never realized how quiet a room could be until the noise stopped meaning something. There's a cup on my table, herbal tea still warm, the steam curling in slow ribbons above the rim. Next to it, a notebook with soft creases near the binding. I didn't write anything new this morning, just underlined a sentence from last week. The ink bled a little, maybe I pressed too hard. The cactus by the window has grown a second arm. Not much, just a stubby little limb pushing toward the light. I haven't named it. I don't talk to it, but I water it every third morning, and I don't forget. The chair I sit in is second-hand, upholstered in green fabric that doesn't match anything else in the room. I chose it because it doesn't ask to belong, like me. I used to think of comfort as something I had to earn. Now, I let it arrive in simple things: warm socks, unwashed hair, silence. There's a letter I keep folded in the back pocket of the notebook. The handwriting is soft and slanted, the kind that trails off as if the writer didn't expect to finish. My mother's words still hold their shape. Even after all these years, you'll live a life no one needs to approve. That's when you'll know. I never really left. I don't read it often. Just enough to remember that solitude doesn't always mean abandonment. The nurse's watch she left behind, broken quiet, faithful, sits on my shelf like a witness. The hands don't move. The strap is fraying, but the face still shines in the dark if I hold it up long enough. I never wore it. I never needed to. Some things aren't meant to function anymore. They're meant to remain. The last message I received from Tyler still sits unread in my inbox. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I haven't deleted it. I haven't replied. It floats there like a balloon no one is holding. I suppose some apologies are just gestures, a way to clean the mirror without looking into it. No one calls anymore. No one tags me in photos. I stopped updating my profiles 2 months ago. The notifications stopped within days. Nothing teaches you irrelevance like silence you didn't choose. But today I folded the laundry while humming a tune I couldn't name. I made oatmeal and added cinnamon because I remembered the taste, not because anyone told me to. I wiped the kitchen counter in slow circles and left one crumb on purpose, just to prove I could. Across the street, a couple walked their dog. The leash tugged a little. The man laughed. The woman adjusted her scarf. A child on a pink bicycle wobbled past them. One wheel lifted off the sidewalk for a second. No one looked up. No one waved. No one knew me. And no one needed to. I don't crave revenge anymore. I don't need to be proven right. I don't need their faces to wrinkle with guilt or their hands to tremble while dialing my number. I live in a space that doesn't echo their voices. I eat meals without rehearsing what I'd say if someone asked. I buy flowers for my kitchen table, not for guests, not for pictures, just for the scent, when I walk in from a long day. I haven't spoken my father's name out loud in months. It's become something private, not sacred, just retired. There's a drawer I never open. Inside an old bracelet, a burned envelope, a phone I haven't charged. I keep them not because I want to, but Because I don't need to throw them away anymore. They've stopped being loud. Forgiveness isn't required. Closure isn't a ceremony. Sometimes you just walk further until the voices fade behind you. I took a sip of tea, still warm, still bitter. Then I closed the notebook, placed the pen beside it, and leaned back in my chair. The cactus tilted slightly toward the light. No music, no voices, no declarations, just breath. Just enough, just mine,